I left Karnaca decades ago. I remember falling in love with Jessamine, Emily's birth. Trouble has found us again. You think you know what regret is? Fill a book with all the people I've killed. I haven't come this far to fail now. What do I have to become?
Corvo Attano is, as we know, the protagonist character in Dishonored, the player's character who is dishonored at the outset of the game, and who we control in his quest to restore his name and put his daughter Emily Kaldwin on her murdered mother's throne. During the course of all the games, we learn a lot about his past and character. This video is an attempt to fill in some of the gaps a casual player might have in their knowledge, and maybe add one or two facts even die-hard fans might not know. Corvo was born on the island of Sarkonos on the 25th of Nets in 1798, making him 39 during the events of Dishonored 1. He grew up in the Batista district of Karnaca, later nicknamed the Dust District due to overmining. In Dishonored 2, you can visit his childhood home, which has a plaque outside. The name of this street isn't given, however, in a district renovation plan proposed by Aramis Stilton, it's labeled Kavala Passage. Other streets are renamed, so it's not clear if this is its original name or a new one. His parents were older at the time of his birth, and his father, who was a lumber worker, died in an accident, leaving his mother Paloma to raise Corvo and his older sister Beatrice alone. Corvo spent much time in the less developed parts of the city, watching the ships come and go and dreaming of adventure. When he was still a child, Beatrice left home unexpectedly without word to anyone. She too dreamt of distant places, and he never saw her again. Growing up on the hard streets of Karnaca, Corvo developed into a capable fighter and learned the art of stealth. In 1814, at the age of 16, Corvo entered and won the Blade Verbena tournament. This annual sword duel competition is extremely prestigious, and the most skilled fighters from across the Isles come to Karnaca to compete. It's open to anyone: aristocrats, military officers, commoners, and brigands. Supposedly, Kirin Jindosh once entered one of his clockwork soldiers in it and won. Winners are often offered positions in the Grand Sarkonan Guard and other elite units across the Empire. So for Corvo to win the trophy at such a young age was quite an event and made him something of a working-class hero. If you visit his home, you can find the trophy he won hidden behind some loose bricks. His mother admits in her diary that she only pretended to be afraid for him, knowing he'd win. This also won him a junior officer commission in the Grand Guard. During this time, he fought crime rings, rogue states, and pirates in the eastern archipelago off Sarkonos. 2 years later, on the 28th of Rain, Duke Theodanis sent Corvo to Dunwall to serve Emperor Euhorn Kaldwin, a great honor. His mother Paloma died a few weeks after his departure, though it took several months for him to learn of it. A year later, Jessamine Kaldwin chose Corvo as her royal protector. Corvo was the first and only Lord Protector not born in Gristle, so this sudden elevation in his status was greeted with suspicion by some. You know those Sarkonans.
It's all merchants and whores down there.
His mysterious and quiet demeanor didn't help him in this, as many at court knew little about him. He also served as Jessamine's courier and spy. They supposedly began an illicit relationship in 1823, but their public closeness was obvious, and rumors ran rampant in Dunwall. Emily was born 4 years later, and Corvo's paternity was considered the worst-kept secret in the Empire. He began training Emily early on, disguising it as play. Stick fights, climbing, hide-and-seek, and Tivian chokeholds, I guess. Spymaster Hiram Burroughs deliberately introduced plague rats from Pandysia to the poorer districts of Dunwall in 1835, in an attempt to
decrease the surplus population.
Late in the following year, Corvo was sent on a tour of the other isles in order to search for a cure. This was engineered by Burroughs to get him out of the way while the spymaster plotted the assassination of Jessamine and abduction of Emily. Corvo's return without any good news 2 days early is the start of Dishonored, set on the 18th of Earth at the beginning of 1837. He was to receive a naval commendation for his efforts before he was falsely arrested for the crime, and Dowd can steal this award in the Brigmore Witches. Corvo spent 6 months in Coleridge Prison while Burroughs and Campbell attempted to extract a confession out of him before being broken out by the Loyalist conspiracy. Now, since the calendar year begins in the month of Earth, in the late spring or summer, when he escapes, it's the month of high cold, winter. So yeah, all that sewer water he swims through is probably freezing. I won't spend too much time going over the events of the game, since if you've played it, you already know. Plus, Zombieclone's excellent video on Corvo covers this time very well. In brief, Corvo and the conspiracy hid out at Admiral Havelock's Houndapits pub and enacted a systematic attack on Hiram Burroughs' support as Lord Regent, rescued Emily, removed Burroughs himself, and restored Emily to the throne. To aid this, Corvo was granted supernatural powers by the Outsider, and custom gear and mask crafted by Piero. After defeating Burroughs, he was betrayed by the conspirators, who desired to hold power over Emily themselves, poisoned, and dumped in the flooded district. There he faced Dowd, the assassin who really killed Jessamine. If the player spares Dowd, it will be the hardest thing Corvo ever did, choosing to banish Dowd and let him live in constant fear, rather than execute him. Finally, he confronted the conspirators who betrayed him, then turned on each other, rescuing Emily a second time. The player's choices throughout define what the game's ending is like, but the canon ending is low chaos with the plague passing and Emily placed on the throne with Corvo at her side. The player's chaos and detection levels also determine what wanted posters appear throughout Dunwall. During these missions, Corvo can kill his main targets or eliminate them in some non-lethal manner. Non-lethal does not necessarily mean merciful. Some of these fates are often thought to be worse than death, but they do contribute to a lower chaos score. Do not read too much moral assumption into these choices. Oddly, Parliament didn't appoint a new regent to run things, instead allowing a 10-year-old to be crowned as Empress Regnant. Though we can guess that Parliament at the time would be paralyzed and in chaos, so maybe it makes sense. We can guess that Corvo took a large role in guiding Emily over this time. Perhaps too much of a role, since as we see at the opening of Dishonored 2, she's not that great at empressing, even after 15 years of on-the-job training, preferring to run across rooftops at night rather than attend meetings with bureaucrats. There seems to have been a decent amount of opposition to the child empress, since in or around 1841, a group of Burroughs loyalists known as Regenters attacked Emily's carriage, throwing a grenade. She threw it back at the assassins, then fended off attacks with the help of Alexei Mayhew until Corvo could arrive. When Emily turned 18, Corvo gave her an unusual birthday gift, another attack, staged to test her fighting abilities. To Corvo's delight, she managed to overpower 4 hired thugs, taking only a few hits and a bloody nose. I hope those guys got some good hazard pay for that. In 1849, the witch Delilah was brought back from the Void, where Dowd exiled her after foiling her attempt to possess Emily and rule in her place. Before her coup in 1852, Delilah laid groundwork for her return, with actions designed to destabilize and weaken confidence in Emily's rule. In one instance of this in 1850, she sent a follower to Dunwall to wreak havoc, using the Roaring Boys gang to distribute weapons to the criminal underworld. While investigating this along with his new protege Martha Coddings, Corvo became distracted by the arrival of a young boy who bore a striking resemblance to his lost sister Beatrice, and a locket containing her portrait. While Coddings tracked the gang's supplier, Corvo hunted for more information. After barely surviving a fight with thugs using bone charms, he was rescued by the boy, who called himself Milo Ridpath, and claimed to be Corvo's nephew. He told Corvo that he and Beatrice were captured in Karnaca to be used as leverage against him by his enemies. But after striking out to find his sister, Corvo learned the truth, that the boy and his story were conjured from a painting using the witch's magic, and neither were real. The purpose of all this was to distract Corvo while spreading chaos in Dunwall and collecting bone charms. When the painting was burned, the boy dissolved in Corvo's arms. Coddings seemingly died fighting the gangsters, but was in fact rescued by time-traveling Billy Lurk. By 1851, Corvo had trained Emily in stealth and combat almost to his own level, minus the supernatural powers, of course. One location he used for this was the old waterfront, an industrial district with few homes that was deserted at night. Emily began going out at night on her own to escape the drudgery of court life, but Corvo usually followed in secret to keep her out of too much trouble. It was during one of these outings that Emily encountered grave robbers, digging up bodies to harvest bones for charms. These were remnants of Dowd's Whaler gang, now under the control of Zukov, a Tivian once hailed as a state hero, but was condemned to a gulag for conspiring with Jessamine to limit the power of the ruling high judges. After escaping prison with the help of bone charms and the twin-bladed knife he found, he used the gang to collect more bones as part of a plan to take revenge on the judges. One part of his plan involved retrieving bones from witches buried at Brigmore Manor, which was by then owned by Slackjaw, who had taken the name Azaria Fillmore and turned to exotic liqueur importing. With his help, Corvo repelled an attack on the manor, and learned that they also planned to strike the Boyle mansion during the annual masquerade ball, to steal bones from a whale skeleton the Boyles owned. Emily broke custom and attended the ball in secret, wearing a Black Sparrow costume. Though the Whalers were defeated, Zukov obtained the bone, abducted Emily, and completed his ultimate charm, a black mirror that could show and access alternate timelines. Corvo used his powers to travel to Zukov's base, where he and Emily together destroyed the mirror and killed him to prevent him from catastrophically changing history. During the fight, the twin-bladed knife disappeared and later came into the possession of the Eyeless. The next year, 1852, Delilah launched her coup with the aid of Duke Luca Abel, Mortimer Ramsay, and others. Corvo used his powers to fight back the traitorous guards, but Delilah's new immortality let her easily defeat him. Canonically, during the strike, she ripped away Corvo's powers and turned him to stone, leaving Emily to carry out the events of Dishonored 2. In preparation for this, the conspirators sent the so-called Crown Killer to gruesomely murder Emily's political opponents to frame her and Corvo for the killings and weaken their popularity. Corvo's skill at killing, his reputation for ruthlessness, and once again his foreignness were all used against him. Whoever the player chooses, Emily or Corvo, traveled to Karnaca with Billy Lurk in the guise of Megan Foster, eliminated the Crown Killer, rescued Sokolov from Kieran Jindosh, defeated Delilah's allies Brianna Ashworth and Duke Luca, and potentially changed history to prevent Aramis Stilton from going insane and Billy from losing an arm and eye, and finally turned Delilah mortal again and defeated her in one way or another. Corvo was released from his stone state as Delilah's magic melted away. Dunwall was in ruins from the coup, and once again a long period of rebuilding began. As the player character, Emily learned that she had not been a terribly good empress, and resolved to do better and to heal her fractured empire. Soon after these events, the firebrand reformer Archibald Wainwright led popular protests advocating for dissolving the monarchy. Corvo had little patience for this, and despite his working-class roots, openly threatened Wainwright for his speech. Now 54 years old, he was officially too old for this shit. But he had bigger problems, as the anarchist rat gang, led by Luella Price, was busy murdering Reconstruction teams. After finding and interrogating one member, they learned that the gang planned to strike the clock tower. But it turned out to be a trap, and the explosion severely wounded Corvo. During his convalescence, Emily managed to hunt down and defeat Price, even though she used bone charms to cancel out Emily's powers. Corvo took this as proof his training had more than prepared Emily to face any future threats, with or without him at her side. After Corvo's death at some future date, Emily would be known as the Wise and the Clever for the effectiveness of her reign. As a player character, Corvo's personality is pretty much a blank slate, whatever you want it to be. An archetypal action protagonist, he is distant, stoic, and reserved, but determined and practical. He will stop at nothing to protect Emily and defend the Kaldwin line, since, after all, that's the point of the game. His skills and demeanor contributed to Havelock's suspicion that he would be dangerous to the Loyalist conspiracy and his decision to betray him. Though considered an unvoiced protagonist in Dishonored 1, in fact his various screams and grunts at many points are provided by, according to IMDb, someone named Luke Harrison. Of course he's voiced by Stephen Russell in the sequel, of Thief fame, and supposedly his skin tone is based on developer Rafael Colantonio, though this is unconfirmed. Corvo was in part inspired by the folklore character Spring-Heeled Jack, a sort of 19th century London supervillain. It's always tough to try to make a profile of a video game protagonist, since they're really just a surrogate for the player themselves. But perhaps we can look at the events of Corvo's life and piece together some sense of the man. He lost his entire family by the age of 18. He was alone in a foreign nation, until suddenly he wasn't. His life of constant struggle and survival made him uniquely suited to respond to the incredible threats he and Emily faced. A lesser candidate would likely not have attracted the interest of the outsider, and Hiram Burroughs' plot would have succeeded. His guilt over not being able to stop Jessamine's killing certainly eats at him, and he probably blames himself even more than he blames Dowd. His refusal to allow anything like that to happen again can explain his actions afterward. Ultimately, Corvo is a man of deep feeling, but conceals much. Not out of some personal insecurity, but terror at letting any weakness be used against him or to threaten those he loves. In some ways, Corvo is kind of a psychopath. But remember, this is a very brutal world he lives in, and there's kind of an unnatural selection going on here, where if you're not at least a bit ruthless, you just won't survive long. Read my books, you choffers.